Jair did the gritty. The Raiders did well without Devontae's buddy. The playoffs are almost set. Are the Packers still contending? You bet. It's either us, Seattle, or Jay Willie. Welcome to the Mishpo. All right, everybody, welcome to the 2023 Week 18 episode of the Mishpo. First episode of 2023, last episode of this past season. Before we jump into everything, obviously there was the Monday night game with the Bengals and the Bills with the very sad and scary Damar Hamlin injury slash, I guess no one really knows, cardiac arrest situation that is still ongoing, and I believe it was earlier yesterday. I made a message in the league chat wondering how people would like to handle the situation, as that game seems kind of highly unlikely to be concluded, as in played out, finished with those two teams. Will not happen this week. If it does happen, and obviously next week, this current upcoming week, is the last week of the regular season. No one really said much. State Farm was chatting a bit. Keep the scores the same, or use projected score. But so I guess it's kind of a combination. I guess the winner wouldn't have really changed. There was the one matchup, the third place matchup, where it was pretty close. And right now there's no projections because that game has been deemed finished by Sleeper. And so unless anybody is really adamant to have the game continue or have the scores count should that game even happen, scores will stay as they are. And luckily it didn't really affect too much. I'm sure there are leagues out there where championships were decided based off of what happened. But yeah, so luckily, like I said, the teams that had the players in the games were either matchups for ninth place, so not too big of a deal, or the deficit was too big to realistically maybe. Obviously they could have. Anything can happen in fantasy, but we'll just move on from that. As this is last week's episode, the last episode, and if you notice, I am in my office. First time, and I was saving it for the last week. Who would have thought that this is actually quite nice place to record episodes of the Mishpo? Maybe next year I will come back here and quit the jumping around. But we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, as it is the last episode of the season, I went with an old reliable beer. Can't remember if this is the first beer I had on this season's Mishpo, but I got the good old Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. So we will crack in, and we will look back on the last week of the fantasy football regular season for the 2022 regular season. So, yeah, as before, Sam and Adam had their no matchups. Adam took fifth place, so congratulations, Adam. And we will, of course, start with the Sacko matchup, myself versus Colin early on. I felt fairly good, as well as I could feel, considering how well my team has been doing all season. And for a while, I was projected to win. But then I think in the span of like 10 minutes, Deshaun Watson threw a touchdown to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who are both Collins players. And Michael Pittman also got himself a touchdown. The only touchdown of the game for the Colts. So that's really cool for you, Colin. But yeah, this one was fairly close. Probably my closest matchup of the playoffs. And Colin, of course, did get the victory, 99.16 to my 85.6. And so I am your Sacko. I know all of you were vying for me to be Sacko after a little bit of smack talk I was doing with Abby week 1 of the playoffs, which little bit of a fun little story. Obviously, the Packers beat the Vikings on Sunday, which was awesome. And I'm in a group for a podcast. It's a Slack channel, and one of the podcast hosts is a Vikings fan, and he has, obviously said it, and otherwise I wouldn't really know. And I was kind of giving him shit the week that the Vikings came back from that 33-point deficit against the Colts. And so I thought, hey, we're playing the Vikings if the Packers do well, and which they did. I, threw some messages out there, and a number of them were directed towards Kirk Cousins, as one does. Come to find out, the reason that this guy is a Vikings fan is because he's childhood friends with Kirk Cousins. So I felt a little bad. Obviously, did not mean to be mean to one of his good friends, as he said in the messages, as a response to my messages. But yeah, so that was kind of fun, kind of cool that he's friends with Kirk Cousins. But yeah, kind of an interesting situation I was in on Sunday. So anyway, back to the league. So yeah, I took 14th place. Colin is in 13th. And the 11th place matchup is T-Corn versus Derek. This one was much further distance. T-Corn, spoiler alert, did win, took 11th place. Had one of the best scores on the week. Looking at it, he appears to have the third best score on the week. So congratulations for showing up, T-Corn. Jamal Williams, mentioned him before, had 22.7. Both of the Detroit Lions running backs had solid games. Amari Cooper, pretty good as well, 25.5 from him, 21 from CeeDee Lamb. Jacoby Myers had 16.8, so pretty solid stuff from him, and 18 from the Seahawks defense. Over on Derek's side, 14 from James Conner, so not the worst, but it was kind of the worst for Stephon Diggs, who had 4.6, so not great from him. Isaiah Hodgins had 14.2. 13 from the Eagles defense. They've been playing really well all season long. So yeah, T-Corn won, taking 11th place on the season. 137.58 to Derek's 84.2. Before jumping into the 9th place matchup, I'm going to take a quick sip. Oh, and a quick time check for all of y'all wondering. 3:56 on January 4th, 2023. So pretty cool stuff. So yeah, the 9th place matchup, which is the closest matchup of the week, a difference of about 4 points. So pretty good stuff here. And there were some of the Bills-Bengals players in this matchup. Abby versus Michael. Michael had Tom Brady, who finally looked like a competent quarterback. 37.68 points from him. Dalvin Cook got shut down from the Packer game. 6.4 from him. Ramondre Stevenson, that is not that great. 7.1. Brandon Ayuk, though, had some pretty solid pointage this week. 26.7. So pretty solid stuff. Cole Kmet had the 10.7 with the touchdown. So pretty good. And then obviously, Devin Singletary, can't really blame him. 0.3 points for only 3 rushing yards. But Kareem Hunt, you can kind of blame him for only 0.9 points, as he did get a full game. So not great from him. Over on Abby's side, Russ actually did pretty solid, 23.58, 20.4 from Cordell Patterson. AJ Dillon, 10.1, so not too bad. Shut down TJ Hawkinson, so that was nice. Relatively, 12.9, considering how he had been doing over the course of the season. And, of course, Gabe Davis had the 0, but, again, not really his fault. That has kind of been his MO over the season, either really good or really bad. But yeah, the winner of this matchup was Michael, 113.23 to Abby's 109.03. And Michael took ninth place. The seventh place matchup, Lincoln versus Caleb. This one had the second highest scoring team on the week, and also one of the lowest scoring teams on the week. In fact, Lincoln did win. He almost doubled Caleb's points. So very solid showing for Michael Lincoln. Although T-Corn did pretty well too, and Michael did not bad. So, it's kind of true. And man, I did score more points than Caleb this week, so that would have been nice to face him. But and I actually did beat Derek as well, and that close. Fantasy, it's always about these what ifs, but it's okay. But we'll start with Caleb. Obviously, Jared Goff, quarterback, 22.4, so all right. Actually, that is pretty good for him. 5.6, though, from David Montgomery, so not great. 9.1 from Kamara, not too great from him. And then Tyler Lockett coming back from hand surgery, 3.5 points. Some just kind of stinkers. Obviously, you had Jamar Chase, so 0 points from him. Mike Williams, though, did pretty solid, 16.4. Now, over on Lincoln's side, Dak had 15.38, so not that great, but Jerick McKinnon and Christian McCaffrey, your two running backs, 22.6 and 31.3, respectively. DJ Moore had 23.7. 19 for Mark Andrews, finally doing some good stuff when you need him the most, even though this matchup was kind of trivial. Didn't really mean too much for you. And then the Chiefs defense had 10.75. So in the end, Lincoln got the victory, 141.13 to Caleb's 72.9, which will bring us on to the penultimate matchup of the week, the third place matchup between Bruce and Fiala. Bruce was rocking Brock Purdy, obviously after Jalen Hurts got hurt, but he didn't do terribly. 18.03, 12.6 from Chubb. That is Nicholas Chubb. Tyreek Hill had 15.7. And Devontae Adams, despite not playing with his best friend, Derek Carr, he had 34.3. So very solid stuff. And as I mentioned, DeAndre Swift, both lines running backs doing very well. Swift had 27.7 points. So very solid stuff. And then Fiala obviously had Josh Allen, who obviously that game was cut short. He had only 2.72 points, but Travis Etienne had 23. Cam Akers had 14.3, finally in your lineup, and did all right. He really did turn it on the last month of the season, month and a half or so. So pretty cool. See how that turns into next year. Devonta Smith, 20.5 from him, 11.8 from Keenan, and only 1.3 from DK Metcalf. So this one was, obviously it's in the important realm of matchups, as this one was for some money. But that there's a 30-point deficit there with the Josh Allen. Maybe make up, but there is Dawson Knox. So again, we'll just leave this final score as is. Bruce did win 133.01 to Fiala's 102.52, which of course brings us to our championship matchup. And as I did throw out in the chat earlier, one of the most dominant performances I have seen ever in this league, or in any league really, in a championship matchup. State Farm versus Brian. Starting off on Brian's side, 16.56 from Rogers. Raheem Mostert had 23.1, so not too bad. 15.2 from Ken Walker. Justin Jefferson got shut down by Jair and the rest of the Packers DBs. Only 2.5 points from him, so that's very fun stuff. 16.2 from Darren Waller and 16.5 from Tyler Algier. So pretty solid stuff from them. Now here's where we get to the real performers. For State Farm, Patrick Mahomes, 26.52, 32 from Eckler. Leonard Fournette, not great, 8.7 points. And Jalen Waddle, not great, 8.2. But Mike Evans finally showing up, 48.7 points from him with the 3 touchdowns. And of course, I benched him in the league where touchdowns are the only thing that matters. So thanks a lot, Mike Evans. You've been a real pain this season. So Dalton Schultz, though, had a pretty solid game, too. 24.6, 2 touchdowns from him. And the Jags' defense was very, very solid against Houston, 17.25. So, yeah, State Farm obviously blew Brian out of the water with the highest score on the week, 176.27 to Brian's 112.21. So, congratulations, State Farm, on winning the championship. And I will run through the final standings of this season. And this in the order that I'm reading them. And I always start, obviously, from 14 to 1. So start at 14. 14 will have the first pick at picks for where they want to draft. And obviously, we have months and months and months until those decisions need to be made. But just kind of get people thinking as to what will be happening at some point during the summer. So at 14 and first pick at picks is myself, and then Colin at 13, 12 Derek, T-Corn 10, T-Corn 11, Abby 10, Michael 9, Caleb 8, Lincoln 7, Sam 6, Adam 5, Fiala 4, Bruce 3, Brian 2, and of course State Farm at 1. So yeah, a couple before we wrap up, a couple things. I will hopefully get State Farm his trophy sooner rather than later. I know it's been kind of in this late summertime that they've been given out in the past. I will try to pry that thing away from T-Corn sooner and get it to you, before draft time. And for Sacko punishment, obviously I'm Sacko, so that kind of helps with the planning, because I would kind of help plan the thing, and it's going to be me, so there's no, I would know of conflicts. So we were thinking, and Bree kind of had this idea, that last year the Sacko punishment was State Farm did the karaoke, which, just quick side note, State Farm was the Sacko and went from Sacko to champion. Actually went from champion to Sacko to champion. So if it's not first, it's last for State Farm, which is kind of interesting. But the point I'm making is State Farm was Sacko last year and won the championship this year. So we'll see if that trend continues. Sure hope it does. And, statistically, mathematically, I do have the best draft picks. And so I'm kind of hoping that those come to good use for me in this upcoming draft and for next season. So, but that's months away. We will deal with that later. But yeah, the Sacko punishment. What Bree had suggested, since we did the punishment and the draft on the same day, the draft followed by the punishment, this one kind of bodes well for being a daytime, maybe around lunch-ish time punishment. So she had suggested, and obviously I am up to suggestions for a different planning of this and whatnot, but she had the idea that we would do the wide receiver combine, in which I will dress up in a other NFC North team's jersey, which obviously not the Packers, so either Lions, Vikings, or Bears, and do wide receiver combine at Titletown District. So the 40-yard dash, probably do some catching drills, some one-on-one type stuff, whatever else, agility cones, all that fun stuff. We'll be doing that. Thinking do that during the afternoon, late morning time period, and then draft that night. So if people are planning on coming from out of town to the draft, they get to witness me get punished as well. So, yeah, that was kind of the idea that Bree had suggested. Obviously, we can do other times, but that does kind of seem to make the most sense um, at this moment. So, yeah, um, we have reached the end. The off season will be kind of quiet for the most part. We'll have a few surveys, I'm sure, come up with things, potential changes for next season. Had the new defensive scoring this year. I definitely think it went well. I hope everyone thought so as well. And we had the no kickers this year and the double flex, and I did enjoy that better. So I hope all of you also enjoyed that better. We'll see if there's any other tweaks that we want to make. If anybody has any ideas, of course, let me know, and we can put it up to a vote and keep improving this league. So, yeah. With that, thank you everybody for such a great season. I hope everyone had a good time. Everyone had a better season than I did. So if I had a good time, then y'all hopefully had a good time. So with that, thank you and thank you. Alrighty, for the final time of the current season, I will be flipping this can. Colin, you still owe me a shotgun. And actually, I did land on my mom during the Packer game, so I'm kind of on fire right now after so many months of not landing one. And of course, this has to go to State Farm, our current champion. And actually, if you noticed during the recording just there, I checked my watch towards the end. He's asking what his payout is, so don't worry, guys. The folks who won the money, I will get that to you shortly, and actually probably by the time you're watching this, you will have received the money, assuming I have your Venmo and all that stuff, and I think I do for most of you. But yeah, I can't remember at the moment. I believe I'll have to check. I can't remember at the moment, but you'll know at the time that you'll see this. But I'll quit rambling. This flip is going to our current champion and owner of the Bork, State Farm, second-time champion. How poetic would have that been? But of course, it did not land. So, hope everyone had a great New Year, and catch you later.